All right, you bunch of pretentious bookworms, let's cut the crap and dive right into this shit. We're talking about the Nobel Prize in Literature. You know that fancy pants award they give to writers who supposedly did some great shit for humanity?
Supposedly.
We got a whole stack of articles, interviews, even some leaked Academy gossip, all about this prize. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're going to expose all the bullshit and drama behind this whole literary circle jerk.
It's definitely an award with a lot of history and baggage, and let's face it, some pretty questionable choices over the years.
Exactly. That's what we're here to unpack. The good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So let's start with the basics. Alfred Nobel, the dude who started this whole thing, he wrote in his will that the prize should go to the writer who produced the most outstanding work in an ideal direction. And what the fuck does that even mean? Sounds like some vague, pretentious bullshit to me.
It is incredibly vague, you're right, and it's led to endless debate and controversy over the years. You have to remember, Nobel was writing this back in the 19th century, so his idea of idealistic was probably very different from what we might consider idealistic today.
So we got a bunch of stuffy Swedish professors trying to figure out what some dead dude meant by idealistic. What a clusterfuck.
Well, the interpretation of ideal direction has definitely shifted over time. Early on, the Academy tended to favor more conservative traditional writers, often European, who upheld the values of their time.
Sounds pretty fucking boring.
You're not wrong. But as time went on, their interpretation of idealistic broadened to include authors who explored themes of humanism and social justice, and eventually they started recognizing more diverse voices from around the world.
So they went from kissing the king's ass to trying to be all woke and shit.
You could say that, but even with those shifts, the Nobel Prize has always been tangled up in politics, personal biases, and cultural trends.
Let's talk about that. Who the hell are these judges anyway? Do they even read anything other than IKEA assembly instructions?
They are members of the Swedish Academy, which is made up of 18 Swedish writers, linguists, and literary scholars. They're elected for life and operate in almost total secrecy.
Elected for life. Are they some kind of literary mafia? And the secrecy bullshit is ridiculous. How can we trust their judgment if we don't even know how they operate?
It's definitely a system that invites scrutiny, but the idea is to protect the integrity of the process and prevent outside influence, in theory at least.
Yeah, whatever. Let's be real. They're just trying to make themselves look important. But let's get to the juicy stuff. We all know there have been some serious snubs over the years. I mean, how the fuck did Leo Tolstoy not win a Nobel Prize? War and Peace. Are you kidding me?
It's one of the biggest mysteries in literary history. There are theories. Maybe the Academy found his later work too radical, or perhaps there were personal grudges involved. We'll probably never know for sure.
What a load of crap. And it's not just Tolstoy. James Joyce, Jorge Luis Borges. These were literary titans who never got the recognition they deserve from the Nobel Committee. It's almost like they have a vendetta against geniuses.
It does make you wonder. And it highlights the inherent flaws of any system that tries to define and rank artistic greatness.
Okay, but this isn't just about a few missed calls. The whole thing reeks of Eurocentrism. It's like you need to be a dead white European dude to even be considered.
It's a valid criticism. For decades, the Nobel Prize was dominated by European writers, primarily men. It's only in recent years that they've started to acknowledge the incredible diversity of literature from around the world. But there's still a long way to go.
No shit. And let's not forget about all the scandals that have plagued this so-called prestigious institution. They've got leaked names, accusations of corruption, and even their own members winning the damn prize. It's like a reality TV show gone wrong.
You're right. The 2018 scandal was a particularly low point for the Swedish Academy.
Oh, yeah. That whole shit show with the sexual assault allegations and the Academy imploding. Tell me more about that.
Well, it all centered around Jean-Claude Arnault, who was married to Katarina Frostenson, a member of the Academy. He was accused of sexual assault by multiple women, and there were allegations that he had leaked the names of winners in advance. The whole thing led to a wave of resignations and a major crisis of confidence in the Academy. It was a complete and utter disaster. They even had to postpone the 2018 award. And it took them years to rebuild their reputation, at least somewhat.
Yeah, talk about a fucking PR nightmare. So after all this drama, Do you think this Nobel Prize still holds the same weight? I mean, does anyone really give a shit anymore?
It's still a big deal, no doubt. Winning the Nobel Prize can make an author's career. Their books get translated into dozens of languages, sales skyrocket, and they become literary superstars overnight.
So it's like winning the fucking lottery for writers.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's not just about the money and fame. The Nobel Prize can also cement an author's legacy. It puts them in this exclusive club alongside some of the greatest literary figures of all time.
Okay, I get that, but let's be real. It's also a giant popularity contest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who decides what's great literature anyway? It's all subjective as fuck.
You're not wrong. There's always an element of subjectivity in any artistic judgment. But the Nobel Committee is supposed to be looking for works that have universal appeal, that transcend cultural boundaries, and speak to the human condition.
Right, universal appeal. That's why they gave it to Bob Dylan a few years back. What a fucking joke. I mean, I like Dylan's music, but come on. A Nobel Prize in literature.
It was a controversial choice for sure. Some people saw it as a snub to traditional literary forms, while others praised the Academy for recognizing the power of songwriting as a literary art form.
Yeah, whatever. It just proves my point. These Nobel folks are just a bunch of pretentious hipsters trying to be edgy. So let's say you're a writer who actually wants to win this thing. What's the secret? Do you have to suck up to the Academy, bribe them with Swedish meatballs?
There's no magic formula, unfortunately. The selection process is notoriously opaque. Nominations come from a select group of people, including previous winners, literature professors, and members of certain literary organizations. And then the committee spends months reading and debating before making their final decision.
Sounds like a bunch of academics sitting around jerking each other off over Proust and Shakespeare. No wonder they miss out on so many groundbreaking writers.
Well, they do consider a wide range of factors,
Yeah.
including an author's body of work, their international reputation, and their contribution to literature. But you're right, it's a very subjective process.
So basically, it's a crapshoot. You could be the most brilliant writer on the planet. But if you don't fit their narrow criteria, you're screwed.
It's not quite that bleak. But it is true that many deserving authors never get the recognition they deserve from the Nobel Committee.
Okay, so let's say you're a writer who's tired of this whole Nobel bullshit. Are there any other international literary prizes worth a damn?
Absolutely. The International Booker Prize is gaining a lot of traction. It focuses on fiction translated into English, so it's a great way to discover writers from all over the world.
So it's like the anti-Nobel. I'm into it. What else you got?
There's the Pulitzer Prize, which is specifically for American writers, but it's highly respected internationally. And then there are regional awards, like the Man Booker Prize for writers from the Commonwealth, the Prix Goncourt for French writers, and the Premio Strega for Italian writers.
Okay, so there's a whole world of literary awards out there. Maybe that's a good thing. It means there's not just one definition of greatness, and writers have more opportunities to get recognized for their work.
Exactly. And ultimately, the value of any literary prize lies in its ability to bring attention to deserving writers and introduce readers to new voices and perspectives.
Fair enough. But let's get back to the Nobel Prize for a minute. You mentioned that winning can have a huge impact on an author's career. Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Take a look at someone like Olga Tokarczuk, who won the Nobel in 2018. She was already a respected writer in Poland, but after winning the Nobel, her books were translated into dozens of languages and became international bestsellers.
So the Nobel Prize can basically make you a global literary rock star.
It can definitely launch an author into a whole new level of fame and recognition, and it can also revive interest in an author's earlier work, especially if they've been writing for a long time.
Okay, I get that. But let's talk about the other side of the coin. What about the pressure that comes with winning this prestigious award? I mean, suddenly you've got all these expectations to live up to.
It can be a lot to handle. Some writers thrive under that kind of pressure, while others find it overwhelming. There's also the risk of being pigeonholed as a Nobel laureate, which can limit an author's creative freedom.
So it's like a double-edged sword. You get fame and fortune, but you also have to deal with a whole new level of scrutiny and expectation.
Exactly. And it's not just about the individual author either. Winning the Nobel Prize can also have a significant impact on a country's literary scene.
How so?
Well, it can bring international attention to a country's literature, leading to more translations and a wider readership for other writers from that country.
So it's like a rising tide lifts all boats.
In a way, yes. Winning the Nobel Prize can create a ripple effect that benefits an entire literary community.
Interesting. So all this talk about the Nobel Prize, its history, its controversies, its impact, it makes you wonder, what's the point of all this? I mean, why do we even care about these literary awards?
That's a great question. I think at their core, literary awards are about celebrating the power of storytelling. They're about recognizing the writers who are pushing the boundaries of language and exploring the depths of the human experience.
Okay, that's a pretty lofty goal. But let's be real, these awards are also about power, prestige, and who gets to decide what's worthy of recognition.
There's no denying that. But even with all their flaws, literary awards can spark important conversations about art culture and the role of literature in society.
Fair enough. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the origins of the Nobel Prize to its impact on writers and literary communities. But I'm curious to know, what about you? If you were on the Nobel Committee, who would you choose for the prize?
That's a tough one.
Huh?
There's so many incredible writers out there, who haven't gotten the nod from the Nobel Committee.
Come on, don't be a pussy. Give me a name. Someone who's been overlooked, snubbed by those Nobel assholes.
All right, all right. If I had to choose, I'd go with Haruki Murakami.
Murakami, the Japanese dude who writes about cats and jazz and disappearing girlfriends. Interesting choice.
He's a master of surrealism and magical realism. His novels are like dreamscapes. They're strange, beautiful, and often unsettling. He explores themes of loneliness, isolation, and the search for meaning in a postmodern world.
Okay, I'll admit I've never actually read any of his stuff, but I've heard it's pretty mind-bending. Is that why you think he deserves the Nobel?
His work is not only innovative and thought-provoking, but it's also incredibly influential. He's inspired a whole generation of writers around the world, and his books have been translated into over 50 languages. He's a global literary phenomenon.
So he's like the Beatles of literature.
In a way, yes. He's got that same kind of universal appeal. His writing transcends cultural boundaries and speaks to something deep within the human psyche.
Okay, I'm sold. Murakami for the Nobel. But let's be real. He's probably got a better chance of winning the lottery than getting that golden statue.
You're probably right. The Nobel Committee can be pretty unpredictable. But hey, a guy can dream, right?
Damn right. Well, I think we've milked this Nobel Prize cow for all it's worth. Any final thoughts before we wrap this shit up?
Just that the Nobel Prize, for all its flaws and controversies, is a reminder that literature matters. It has the power to connect us, challenge us, and make us see the world in new ways.
Okay, that's a pretty good takeaway. I'm going to steal that for my next Tinder date.
Go for it.
All right, folks, there you have it. The Nobel Prize in Literature. A prestigious award with a shady history. A mixed bag of winners. And a whole lot of bullshit along the way.
This has been a wild ride.
But hey, that's what we do here at The Deep Dive. We take the complicated shit and break it down for you. No sugarcoating, just the raw truth. And maybe a few dick jokes along the way.
Always a pleasure.
So keep those brains buzzing. And remember, folks, there's a whole world of amazing literature out there waiting to be discovered. Don't let those stuffy Nobel assholes tell you what's good. Read what you love, challenge yourself, and keep those pages turning. And until next time, peace out, motherfuckers.